Hello, guys. Have a good day. So, this time we will be talking about chapter 9, which is interpersonal communication. So, communication is the heart of safe and effective healthcare. So, in the healthcare setting, communication is one of the most important quality that you should have if you will be working in the healthcare. Because every now and then you need to communicate with your coworkers, you need to communicate with a client, you need to communicate with a family member, and of course, you need to verify things and make sure that you understand and you will be on the same page, right? So, again, this chapter will explore us on how messages can be shared, can be understood by sender and a receiver, and be acted upon among clients and other care teams, right? So it's very important that it always remember that in communication will always be the foundation of professional relationship and client safety. So that's why we need to work as a team. We need by how? By simply communicating as a team. So effective communication allows healthcare to provide uh, providing coordination care, express empathy, understand clients' needs, right? So this means that make sure that when you are communicating, when you have effective communicating, you are actually expressing empathy to your client. You are trying to understand coworkers so that you will be on the same page and you will provide safe care for the client, right? So that's why it ensures continuity of care, safety, and of course the most important one, which is our goal as a PSW, the client-centered care, right? So that's why communication or effective communication is very important because us healthcare gives those things to our client. Again, it ensures the continuity, the safety, and the client-centered care, right? Because let's say if you don't communicate effectively with your coworker, do you think the care that you are giving to your client will be continuous? Of course not, right? Do you think it will be safe? No, because if you will not communicate to the incoming ship of what happened to the client, let's say you know that the client is on isolation and then you didn't tell the new incoming workers, and then you forgot to put a sign that it's infectious or whatnot, or in isolation, then they will bring the client out and mingle with the other clients. Then that is actually leading to an unsafety care, right? And that means if you are not giving safety care, that means you are not being a client centered. You are not also providing client centered care, right? So that is why effective communication is very important. So interpersonal communication involves, of course, your exchange information between two individuals. Very simple. There's a sender and there's a receiver. It's always a face to face, right? It's always a responsibility for each parties to clarify and to give feedback and make sure that you have a mutual role in making sure that you need to verify sorry, and understand what you are talking about. Okay? So you can always say, let me just clarify what you said. You said that Mr. Smith has a fever earlier, so the nurse gave him Tylenol and requested for bed rest, right? So is that means I will not bring Mr. Smith for dinner and he will eat his dinner in the room, right? So those things that is an example of face-to-face communication, giving clarity and giving feedback because you want to provide safety and client-centered care. What are the factors affecting communication? Of course, always have always our baggages. So if we communicate, sometimes our communication, our words is influenced by our personal experiences, our health status, our mood of that day, right? Our culture, our beliefs, and even our age, right? It's always like it's a matter of how we communicate, how we share ideas, will always based on our past, our condition, our personality, our behavior, right? So that's why technology and social media also shape how messages are sent and received. Sometimes that's why, remember, social media has also a big impact and giving wrong information. Like nowadays, it's very rampant to give fake news, right? That is also the negative side of social media. So I just want to emphasize that it's always good that of these factors, right? These factors can actually improve sensibility or sensitivity and adaptability in care. So making sure that those things should be minimized when you are communicating. Remember, I told you you need to be very open, you need to be very respectful. Why is it affecting the culture and beliefs? Let's say if you are talking to a client who is a gay man, and then you are so, let's say, for example, you are religious and you are against, LGBT, whatever, just an example. So make sure that your judgment, the way you communicate with a gay man, is supposed to be respectful in a calm manner despite your own belief, right? So that is why communication can actually influence by personal experiences and beliefs and cultures, etc. So that's why it's very important that you should know how to separate your personal beliefs on the way on how you communicate with your client, especially if it's against the client's perspective. Next, verbal and nonverbal communication. So when we say verbal, it's using words, uh, talking, face-to-face communication, using your voice, and while nonverbal communication uses body language, blinking your eyes, nodding. What else? Um, your tone, your facial expression, if you look mad, if you look happy, your touch to the client, or even your silence, right? It's considered a nonverbal communication. So nonverbal they usually said that it is often reveal the true emotions of the individual. So like say for example, uh, I just want to give an emphasis in terms of the touch. So remember, I think I have discussed this from the previous chapters I had, that making sure when you're touching the client, make sure it's not suggestive, it's not sexual. It's always good that that you ask permission. If you guys can communicate through verbally, you can always ask, I know you're sad, Mr. Smith, can I tap your back just to comfort you? So ask permission, right? Because you don't want to have a double meaning of that, and they might think it's kind of be sexual. Because even there, let's say, even you are taking care of elderly care, they're still somehow sexual clients, right? So it's very important that you give the correct messaging, whether it's verbal communication. When we talk about active listening, guys, this actually focus fully on both verbal and nonverbal cues, right? So making sure that you are focused on listening, or in listening on the person that's talking, whether she's giving you a verbal cues or a nonverbal cues. That's active listening. When you say empathetic listening, that is understanding client's deeper meaning of the conversation, like the client's emotions, and then the perspective of the client without even judging them, right? Let's say if they believe that certain things, you should understand it empathetically, that maybe he's going through something of, or he experienced something good or something bad. That's why he came up into that decision, right? So that is why uh, that's the two. That's the difference of active and empathetic listening. So in the healthcare setting, it's very important that we have both. We listen actively, and at the same time empathetically, right? Because we need to understand the client's emotion, but at the same time, we need to focus and on listening. Next, questioning, clarifying, and focusing. So when you are, it's always good that you use an open-ended question to encourage discussion to the client when you let the client talk. So it's always good that you ask open-ended. Like it's not questions that cannot be answered by just a yes or a no, right? Let the client speak and give his opinion. So that is what open-ended questions. Closed questions for specifics like, do you want to eat? Do you want to drink water? So that's yes or no question, right? So at the same time, for you to be on the same page and you understand each other, it's always good that you clarify the message, and then you make sure that you focus on the conversation to stay on the topic, right? So how to clarify? You can always phrase, if it's unclear, or if it's unclear for you or for the client. And of course, make sure that you need to make refocus on the client, especially if there is a wandering discussion. If the client is kind of be a little bit confused or something like that, try to simplify it, paraphrase it, and make sure that you will always go back to the main topic, right? So that's how you do the questioning, the clarifying, and focusing. So, professional and confidential communication. Of course, from the word professional, I hope one of you use as respectful languages, discretion, and making sure you're aware of your boundaries, right? So, don't be too much in terms of using words. Don't be too close. Don't be as if that you're a member of the family when you're conversating or conversing with the family member or even with a client. Make sure that you are aware of what you're asking, or what you're sharing, and as much as possible you are aware of the boundaries. You don't give it all, you don't share everything to the client. Know your boundaries. And of course, confidentiality, as what I'm always telling you, privacy, control as much as possible. If it's a client information, you don't share it to other people, especially if they are not part of your care team, right? If the PSW is working from the other unit and he is not your coworker from the same floor, then that PSW doesn't need to know. Unless he will be working in your floor, then that's the time he needs to know the background of the client. So maintain confidentiality and client's privacy. So we have a lot of barriers to effective communication, right? Sensory loss, if the client or the if the sender or even the receiver cannot hear clearly, or maybe if there's like disabilities in terms of one of the senses. There might be the client might be sick and cannot focus. There might be an environmental noise, like the noise outside, maybe a construction, a car, whatever. There might be cultural differences, so that's why I remember during the communication, it might affect your effective communication if you have different beliefs, culture. So that's why cultural differences, right? And then of course your personal attitudes. If you have a first impression, sometimes it's that will lead to barrier. So awareness, making sure that you are there to work professionally, and adopting professional communication strategies, that whatever the barrier that we have, whether we have different cultural beliefs, whether he or she likes me or not, I need to be professional, right? So encouraging that individual to talk to you, even let's say as a PSW, you don't like the client because the client is so, let's say, strict, she always complains, etc. But again, you need to be professional and making sure that you need to listen and understand the client, communicate empathetically and actively, right? So by then you can also listen to the client's desires. How about handling difficult interactions or communications. So, say for example, if the client is so irate, there's already anger, there's defense mechanisms, there's emotional stress. Those are actually challenges, right? Uh, a lot challenges in terms of communication. So as a PSW, as a healthcare worker, make sure that you offer the techniques on how to manage the stress, staying composed, staying professional, responding to the client or to the family member professionally. Make sure that you are assertive in terms of communication, but you should also be calm and respectful. Still respect the client or the family member, and make sure you are confident to promote safety and resolution. So let's say, for example, if she doesn't want to listen to you, you can always say, Mr. Smith, if you want to talk to my supervisor, I can call her for you so that she can explain it. Okay? And then if she said, no, okay, Mr. Smith, if you need a space, I will those things. Simply as those things, you are being calm and respectful. So again, guys, clear explanations. What else? Adjusting your tone, your pace, for clients with cognitive or sensory challenges such as dementia clients or even hearing problems. Those are actually will help that the client will feel safe and informed. So it's always good that when you are talking to the client, especially elderly clients, talk on an adjusted tone, like a calm manner, slow tone. Language should always be the easiest words possible. And then make sure you give clear explanation. And then you ask them, Mr. Smith, do you understand what I was trying to say? Okay. So again, it's okay if you repeat it, you validate it, and then you try to simplify it. Okay? So if they don't understand, you want me to repeat what I said, right? So slowly, right? You need to be very patient for clients, especially with clients who has uh, dementia or clients with behavioral or cognitive issues. All right. So that actually ends our chapter 9 for today. I hope you've learned something. So if you want to read so you can always check your ebooks and elsewhere. So it's Interpersonal Communication Foundation, Foundations of Personal Support Work, chapter 9. All right. So I'm sure everybody should have the ebooks access because what I'm giving here is like a simplified lecture to you guys, the most important one. But if you want to go into details, you can always check the ebooks. Okay. So have a good day for everyone. Take care.